If your actions and past comes back to haunt you, you'd better be ready. The past has a way of creeping up on you when you least expect it, especially when it's filled with regrets and unresolved guilt. It's like a shadow that follows you, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when it does, it can be relentless, merciless, and utterly terrifying. Driving through the storm, rain pounding, and visibility near zero, the rain was so heavy that my windshield wipers could barely keep up, and the road ahead was a blur of darkness and water. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white with tension. Every flash of lightning illuminated the road for a split second, casting eerie shadows that danced and flickered before being swallowed by the night again. A ghost on the roadside. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The figure was barely visible through the sheets of rain, but there was something unmistakably otherworldly about it. It stood there, motionless, as if waiting for me. My heart pounded in my chest, and a chill ran down my spine. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I was drawn to it, compelled to keep my eyes on the ghostly figure. His face, familiar, hateful. As I got closer, the details of his face became clearer. It was twisted in anger, eyes burning with a hatred that seemed to pierce through the rain and darkness. Recognition hit me like a punch to the gut. This was no ordinary ghost. This was someone I knew, someone from my past. The realization made my blood run cold. The boy I bullied in high school. Memories flooded back, unbidden and unwelcome. I saw him as he was back then, a quiet, withdrawn boy who was an easy target for bullies like me. I remembered the cruel words, the taunts, the physical abuse. I had pushed him to the brink, and now he was back, seeking revenge. The boy vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving me shaken and filled with a sense of impending doom. I got home, the storm still raging. The drive home felt like an eternity, every minute stretching out in a torturous blend of fear and anticipation. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the storm showed no signs of letting up. The rain continued to pour, and the wind howled like a chorus of lost souls. I hurried inside, locking the door behind me as if that could keep the ghost at bay. Sleep came, but so did the nightmare. Exhaustion eventually claimed me, and I fell into a restless sleep. But peace was elusive. My dreams were plagued by visions of the boy I had tormented. He appeared in my dreams, his face a mask of pain and anger. The scenes shifted and changed, but the theme remained the same. He was there to make me pay for what I had done. I saw his life. He lost his parents on suicide. He had his adopted parents, which were very abusive towards him. He was tormented. The nightmare took me deeper into his past, showing me the life I had never bothered to understand. He had been alone, abandoned by those who should have cared for him, no friends. His days were filled with suffering. He had thoughts of ending it all. I saw the moments that broke him, the relentless torment that pushed him over the edge. The dream culminated in a chilling scene. He stood before me, his eyes filled with a sorrow so deep it seemed to swallow everything around him. His voice was a whisper, but it carried the weight of his suffering. "I hate my life," he said, "especially because of you." The words echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain that refused to fade. Suddenly, he hung himself. I woke up in a cold sweat. The final image was of him hanging, his lifeless body swaying gently. The sight jolted me awake, my heart racing and my body drenched in sweat. I sat up in bed, gasping for breath, the nightmare still vivid in my mind. The line between dream and reality blurred, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still there, watching me. Desperate to forget, I binged Netflix. I needed to escape, the memories and the guilt, the dream. I turned to alcohol, hoping it would numb the pain. I drank until the room spun and passed out. I tried to lose myself in mindless TV shows, anything to keep my mind off the boy that haunted me. But no matter how much I drank or how many episodes I watched, the memories were always there, lurking in the shadows. Suddenly a noise from the basement. Just when I thought I had managed to push the memories back, a noise shattered the fragile peace, luring me to a place I rarely visited. The sound was faint, but unmistakable, a soft, persistent tapping, like someone knocking on a door. My heart skipped a beat, and a sense of dread settled over me. I knew I had to check it out, but every fiber of my being screamed at me to stay away. I made my way down basement stairs. The air grew colder with each step, and the darkness seemed to thicken around me. When I reached the bottom, I saw him. He was hanging from the ceiling just like in my nightmare. His eyes locked onto mine, and a twisted smile spread across his face. "You did this to me," he said, his voice dripping with accusation. The sight was too much to bear, and I felt my sanity slipping away. I screamed and ran to my bedroom, locking the door behind me. But even there, I couldn't escape the fear. It clung to me, a constant reminder of the boy that haunted my every waking moment. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, heard his voice. The fear was relentless, and it kept me awake night after night. The nights were long and torturous, but eventually morning would come. The rain never stopped, a constant backdrop to my misery. I tried to go about my day, to focus on work and mundane tasks, but it was impossible. The boy was always there, lurking in the corners of my mind, waiting for the moment to strike. On way to work, the rain continued to pour, and the wipers struggled to keep the windshield clear. And then, just like before, he appeared. His face was pressed against the glass, eyes burning with hatred. "You did this to me," he repeated, his voice a chilling whisper that cut through the noise of the storm. I swerved, nearly losing control of the car, but when I looked again, he was gone. I called in sick. I couldn't go to work, not like this. My voice shaking as I made up an excuse, the fear driving me faster than I had ever driven before. I needed to get away, to find some semblance of safety, but deep down, I knew there was no escaping him. I went home to turn the TV on and drink some more for some mindless entertainment to take my mind off things. But as soon as I settled in, the screen went black. The room was plunged into darkness, and the silence was deafening. And there he was on the TV, hanging and repeating, "You did this to me," over and over. I turned TV off and turned around. My heart started pounding in my chest as I sensed something behind me. And suddenly there he was, hanging on a rope to his neck from the ceiling, just like before. His eyes locked onto mine, and he began to speak. "You did this to me," he said over and over, each repetition driving the words deeper into my soul. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was frozen in place, trapped by his gaze. Desperate for relief, I went to the doctor. I was prescribed sleeping pills and Therapist, but they did little to help. The ghost was relentless, haunting me every moment of every day. He was always there, a constant reminder of my past. The pills might have made me sleep, but they couldn't keep the nightmares at bay. I couldn't take it. The days turned into weeks, and the torment never ceased. I was a shell of my former self, consumed by guilt and fear. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think. The ghost had taken over my life, and I was powerless to stop him. I reached my breaking point, the weight of my guilt and the relentless haunting too much to bear. In a moment of utter despair, I decided to end it all. I couldn't live like this anymore. I found a rope, tied it to the ceiling, and prepared to hang myself. As I stood there, he appeared. His eyes were filled with a dark satisfaction, and I knew this was what he had wanted all along. I took a deep breath, and then I stepped off the chair. As the life drained from my body, I saw him standing before me. He was smiling, a twisted, triumphant smile. "Now you know how I feel," he said, his voice filled with dark satisfaction. The pain and fear began to fade, replaced by a numbness that spread through my entire being. I realized that this was his final revenge, to make me feel the same despair that had driven him to his death. As my vision dimmed, I heard his voice one last time. "This isn't over," he whispered, his words echoing in the darkness. "You can't escape me." The terror that had haunted me in life would follow me into the afterlife, a never-ending cycle of guilt and revenge. And so, I was left to face an eternity of torment, haunted by the ghost of my past, because of my bullying and my actions. So remember this story, and know that our actions may have consequences, and you may have a haunted moment like this.